Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. I'm Chris Garner, joined today with Tayte from the mountains of Austria to give our review on what is probably a big contender, at least in our opinion, big contender for Best Animated Feature this year at the Oscars. It's the 2017 animated biographical drama film directed by Durato Kabila and Hugh Welchman. That is, of course, Loving Vincent. This was a movie which I didn't hear about. With films, like obviously we're all into films. You kind of find the hidden gems that are coming out or are building up a lot of traction. And I know this film had a lot on Kickstarter. I think that's where it got most of its budget from. There was a big sort of like hype train over it on the internet. And you discovered this and sent me the trailer for it. And I was looking forward to Coco, still am. You sent me this trailer last year and you said, this is the one to watch. And without giving anything away with our review just yet, oh boy, it was. Yeah, how are you doing today anyway, Tate?
I am doing very good today. The sun is shining on the mountains and the internet access is decent, which means I can actually finally get around to reviewing this. I heard about this film way off. I heard that they were making this film almost a year ago. I think it was a post on Reddit saying, oh, they're currently making a completely oil-painted rotoscoped film, and that immediately caught my eye. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And then the first trailer came out and I sent it immediately to Chris. Like, I watched that trailer on repeat. It looked fantastic. Every single little detail of the trailer just looked brilliant. It looked just like a Van Gogh painting. Like, it stood out. It really did. And I've got my problems with Coco. I haven't even seen Coco yet, and I've got problems with it. But even from the trailer alone, and this, I know you shouldn't say this judging from films just from the trailer alone, but this film should win at the awards. It should win at the Oscars for Best Picture. I could say that from before watching the trailers. I could say that now after seeing the film. It is a crime that a film like Coco, which looks so generic and so similar to so many other films of previous years and of Pixar's catalog, that this film, which in itself takes the phrase every frame a painting to the literal sense of the phrase. Yeah, this film was my #1 film of last year on our top 5 films, best and worst films last year. And yeah, it's a go see. Do not get it spoiled here. We'll do a spoiler-free and a spoiler-filled section. Even in the spoiler-free section, I would tell people to go and watch the film and go and experience it.
Absolutely.
Before listening to our review.
This movie is definitely an experience, and I'm still thinking about it now. I went to see it yesterday, and you're right. I mean, I haven't seen Coco yet, so I am not going to badmouth Coco at all until I've seen it, if it is indeed merited, if I do need to bitch about that movie when it comes out. But just in and of itself, this film is this Loving Vincent is breaking ground. It's broke new ground already. It is the first fully painted animated feature, so it's broke new ground in its own genre of animation, and if that doesn't deserve to be nominated or at least get the award, the Academy Award, I don't know what does.
This will put a time date on this. It was nominated for the Golden Globes and it lost to Coco last night in it. Hence why I was going on my little Coco rant, because I obviously have not seen Coco. Coco might be the best animated film ever made, but from seeing trailers, from seeing just previous Pixar films, and from seeing the previous winners, the last time there was a non-Pixar or Disney winner was in 2006.
So it's been a long time, hasn't it? Yeah.
And that was Happy Feet. Okay? We've had some incredible animated films since then which have not won, and especially last year with Kubo and the Two Strings, which should have won. It should have won by a long way. Both Zootopia and Moana were brilliant films, but Kubo and the Two Strings had everything going for it. This film this year has a lot less competition to deal with. It's a straight up race, Coco or Loving Vincent. All of the other animated films this year have been thoroughly disappointing. I think the nominations for the Golden Globes at least were Coco, Loving Vincent, The Breadwinner, which is a foreign animated film, Boss Baby, and Ferdinand. So it's really in a very low caliber year. But this is the time, if any, for like us to have a change in the style of the winner
See, I
of the
thought
best animated feature.
Anomalisa should have won best animated
Anomalisa,
feature from that
yeah,
year.
that was 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was up against what would that have been up against? What one in
Would
the end? It
that would
was
have been the two Disneys, wouldn't it? Oh no, the Disneys came out last year.
no, wait a sec. I'll find out if you want to just quickly go and continue
Yes,
talking.
so Tate will go over the plot of Loving Vincent in a second off IMDb, and usually with films, just in general with our reviews, we'll talk about the actual film itself, but more so with this one, I think we need to talk about the production of it and how it was actually made. So I'm going off Wikipedia here. Apparently, 65,000 frames, individual frames of this film were all painted individually on oil canvas, which is absolutely unprecedented. Not obviously the film was shot in live action first, and then it was rotoscoped afterwards, which is kind of a dying art form now, especially in animation. The only other film I can remember before this that did
Scanner
elements of
Darkly.
that. What? Sorry.
Scanner Darkly.
A Scanner Darkly. I was going way back before that
Oh
to
wow.
the animated Lord of the Rings film that came out. Was that in the 70s, I think?
Oh wow. Yeah.
Really, really bad movie, but it had some pretty good rotoscope in there. I guess rotoscope in terms of animation has kind of evolved now more into motion capture with films like Polar Express or Tintin, where you capture that live performance in a different way and transfer that into CGI animation rather than hand drawn. This is absolutely just a gorgeous film. If you've seen the trailer, you know exactly what you're getting in for. And it was created by a team of 125 painters. And I was reading, sadly, that although thousands and thousands of obviously individual frames were painted, only 1,000 survived the process because there was some process, I don't really know about it, which had to transfer those canvases onto film, and it must have been like a pretty harsh process on the original paintings, and only 1,000 survived. So that's very sad. I have to just like guess that people would have been on this for years. This film must have been in production for absolutely years to get.
I think it was in production for 5 years, but they only really kind of revealed that it was being kind of made, or it was coming towards the end of its process, and it was starting to go into editing about a year ago, which kind of built up the hype for it. By the way, Anomalisa was up against Inside Out, so that was a tough year because there was two clear contenders in that one. But this year, we will have to see with Coco. I'm going to move away from that point, and I'm going to move on to the plot synopsis because people will just think we're rambling on. In a story depicted in an oil-painted animation, a young man comes to the last hometown of painter Vincent van Gogh to deliver the troubled artist's final letter and ends up investigating his final days there before his eventual demise. This film takes you on a journey which feels like I can't really compare it to another film's kind of journey. It's not one where there's any heroes or villains involved in it. It's not one where there's any right or wrong. It's kind of an emotional journey of self-discovery and discovery of Vincent's life, especially the days leading up to his death and what actually happened to kind of push him over the edge towards his suicide.
Yeah.
It's just an intriguing film. I've been debating in my head whether this film would be as good as far as acting performances are concerned if it wasn't oil painted. And I've come to the conclusion that yes, this film works well as a screenplay and as the media that it was shown in. I think the special commendations for the actors Douglas Booth playing the main role of Armand Rouland. His character kind of goes on the journey, shall we say, to deliver the letter to the people who is closest to him. Saoirse Ronan always puts in a stellar performance in every single role she does. In fact, she won the Golden Globe last night for the other film that she's in this year, Lady Bird. So congratulations to her. A very good performance. I cannot find the actress's name, but I think it might be either Eleanor Tomlinson or Holly Earl playing the cafe worker.
Yes. Yeah.
A brilliant, just a really kind of a nice character who you can get behind. And then just the names they managed to get onto this project, I really liked. They had Chris O'Dowd, they had Aidan Turner, they had
Jerome
Jerome Flynn.
Bronn from Game of Thrones. There was Helen McCrory as well, who plays Narcissa Malfoy in Harry Potter. I think she's in Peaky Blinders as well. And your Irish heartthrob, Saoirse Ronan herself.
Like I said, she won the best actress for Lady Bird in last night's Golden Globes,
which we'll have a review for at some point, probably.
Yes, we will.
I think that's released for us in the UK.
And I just think that she nails every single role she's in.
Mm-hmm.
She does a brilliant job. We like her on the podcast. Like we've always been rooting for her in every single film, especially in Brooklyn. Go watch Brooklyn, anyone who hasn't seen Brooklyn. But this film just manages to somehow come together perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
One detail which I do like from the film, if you're a fan of Vincent van Gogh's work, you will find every single painting that he ever did in this film that they have archived. They work it into the film. They work the imagery in there. And you kind of sit back there in the film and you just go, I recognize that. I recognize that exact place, or I recognize that character. He painted her at one point, and a lot of the characters were painted. And it's quite interesting because the various different medias that you see Vincent van Gogh as a person, a lot of the times you've seen him as a person who was hated by a lot of people, who was despised. No one ever bought his paintings. But with this film, you actually see that he was really loved. And there was some people in the town and some people who did dislike him, but more people who liked him and was sad to see him go.
Yeah. And so the film itself, I thought it was very cleverly framed in that we follow this main character of Armand Rollin, played by Douglas Booth, and the film itself almost feels like a whodunit kind of murder mystery, but in a very different way. It sort of goes with his character, and he goes from person to person who came into contact with Vincent or were close to Vincent throughout their life, and he's getting very different stories from everyone, but it's helping him, no pun intended, I hate being this cliche, paint a picture as to what happened with the actual events of Vincent himself. And I thought that was a very clever way to frame it. And I'm not going to go into the ending, but the ending is done in a very fitting and sensitive way. I would say that it pretty much doesn't fall to any one conclusion, which keeps the mystery surrounding the actual events of his death intact. But it is a very fitting tribute. And I mean, I've seen the classic, I don't know what the name of the picture is because I'm not much of an art guy. The Starry Night.
Yeah.
I've obviously that's probably his most famous, or one of his most famous ones. So I knew of that. But all these other pictures, like I can tell which is a Vincent van Gogh painting, but I don't know them by name. So when the credits hit, and the credits are beautiful in this film as well, in that it shows you all the real life artwork and then their converted artwork with the actual likeness of the live action actor as well. So I was seeing all these characters that Vincent had painted and how they'd worked them into the film. And I thought that was absolutely genius how, as you said, captured that imagery and kept sort of like the legacy of Vincent intact. I thought it was an absolutely beautiful film. I don't really know what else I can say about it, really.
There is one very small spoiler, which is a nice surprise. So if you don't want to hear it, then I would just go quiet for a few seconds. But in the flashback scenes, the art style kind of changes. Now, this film has a decent amount of flashbacks, obviously, as it's retelling the events that led up to his death. In the flashback scenes, they go from oil painted to almost, I couldn't tell whether it was still oil painted or whether it was watercolored in black and white. But every single scene is done in a black and white styled, and kind of to distinguish between what was modern day to the aspects of the film and to what was set in the past. And I just thought that it was beautiful, kind of the way that both of those seamlessly went together so well in their respected scenes. I really think they did a brilliant job of it. It just was a phenomenal film from start to finish. I want to see it again. I want to buy the DVD to it. I want to
buy the Blu-ray to this one.
Oh, hell yeah. this would look phenomenal in 4K. I cannot imagine what it would have looked like in cinema. I can only imagine that there will be reshowings in the future, hopefully. But this film truly was, for me at least, one of the best films of last year, if not the best, and possibly one of the best animated films of this generation and possibly of all time. It's breaking boundaries. It's mature, which you don't get very often with animated films. Like we said earlier, A Scanner Darkly being probably the last rotoscoped film that I could remember at least. But at the same time, probably one of the last, other than Anomalisa, I can't even say it, Anomalisa.
There we go.
A fully matured animated feature. And I think that's why it should win, because people always think animated feature, oh, it's a kid's film.
Yeah.
This is far from a kid's film. So
yeah, you can absolutely tell it's a labor of love by the directors and pretty much everyone involved as well. All the artists, like when they put that call out that they wanted artists, apparently they had thousands of applicants. I think they had, whereas 5,000 applicants, and they originally got 125 artists working on it, which was more artists than they even expected to have working on this film. So it just shows how far-reaching this movie was, even when they just put that original announcement out there. Yeah. We've had a question from Chella S in the comments, which I guess we'll round off on. But I have a question. Loving Vincent is Loving Vincent easy to understand for people who don't know much about Vincent van Gogh?
Yes, incredibly. Yeah. It tells almost the whole story of his life in his last few days. And one fact that you might want to know going into Loving Vincent is that Vincent van Gogh, I think it's something stupid like 75% of all of his art that we see today was drawn in the last 5 to 6 months before his death. He only started painting at the age of 30. That was the first time he picked up a paintbrush. And this tale basically shows him in the incredible twilight of his life and the effect that he left after that for the people who he loved and the people who hated him. This film almost gives you his entire life story in art, and it shows it through art itself. I seriously cannot recommend this film enough. It's incredible.
Absolutely. I replied in the comments saying that you can kind of get that idea of who Vincent van Gogh was because he talks to so many different, the main character talks to so many different people in the film, which helps you ground your sort of own image of what Vincent van Gogh was like. And as you said, the artwork, if you don't know his artwork, if you haven't seen any of his artwork, you'll definitely get a feel for that pretty much in every single individual frame from this entire movie. It's a beautiful film. I don't know how readily available this film is to see now on the big screen. If you've got sort of like an independent cinema, if you've got anywhere that does these sort of like lesser known films, not necessarily huge budget animated films or regular films in general, it might be a bit hard to track down. But if you can find this film anywhere, please do give it a shot. Even if you don't know much about art or Vincent van Gogh in general, it's still a great film. It's pushing boundaries in animation, and this, to me, I haven't seen all the other nominees for animation. I know that Coco will probably get in there, and then usually you get some foreign animated films.
The breadwinner is that one this year.
Right. Okay.
I was surprised because I thought that there was a lot of hype earlier on this year for the animated feature called Your Name, the Japanese one, the one that's getting the American remake.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm really surprised that didn't get nominated at all. But other than that, it's Ferdinand and Boss Baby, which
wow,
you just go, wow, really? We have a year where we have 5 incredible films being nominated with Zootopia,
Moana,
Cuba and the Two Strings, Moana, The Red Turtle, and My Life as a Courgette. All 5 could have won at some stage. And then you have this year, which has Boss Baby and Ferdinand being nominated. Wow. If Loving Vincent doesn't win this year, it's a crime.
Yeah, I completely agree. I guess that'll probably do it for our review. We've said everything we can. Thank you to Brinsley and Chella S for joining us in the chat today. That'll do it for our review on Loving Vincent. So be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of this movie. Have you seen it? Haven't you seen it? Anything regarding Vincent van Gogh, I guess, or art, Loving Vincent, please do drop us a comment. I mentioned this in my previous review of Molly's Game. We are getting into the Academy Awards season now, so expect to see a lot more movie reviews from us over the coming few months. It feels like the cinema is my second home at this point over the course of this month. There are so many films yet to come out. I will be jumping on a review later today for Hostiles, which is the Christian Bale movie set in the Old West. Great movie. Looking forward to talking about that in my next video. So yeah, keep it locked here, I guess, for more movie reviews. And until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.